In this video, we're going to look at how to pay the invoice. So we're going to go to Payables from the Springboard, select Payments. So I'm going to select my Submit Payment Process Request from the taskbar. And I'm going to give my payment process request a name. I'm going to call it 2018-0915-0001. Now we're going to select some of these variables. I'm going to select the party or supplier as Lee Supplies. So just to talk through some of the key things that you need to enter when you're creating your payment process request. You could actually have used a template. So with a template, you would specify the variables that you would normally enter on a regular basis. And you could pre-select, for example, your pay through date. You could select things like your pay from date, payment priority. If you want to include zero amount invoices. You can even select your supplier type. You have other things like your pay group. You can specify your attributes by currencies, business unit, legal entities, and so on. So I could say that I want to only select my US1 business unit. So I would search for my US1 business unit and enter this as my variable. I've also got things called the payment and processing options. This is where you will select your disbursement bank account, the bank account that you want to pay the funds from. So we're going to use the Bank of America. And then you have things like your payment process profile, which you would have set up to specify a lot of the variables within your payment. So I'm going to enter or select Swift MT103 because I want it to be paid immediately. You can also specify some of the processing options. For example, you may want to review the installments. You want to apply credits up to zero. You might want to review the proposed payments or even create payment files immediately. If you're using payment approvals, you can specify who the first approval will be. Other options is if you're paying and you want to have a specific payment document, then you could also specify the payment document as well. You can also have things like settlement priorities, bank charges, who's going to pay the bank charges, and also things like the currency rates. You can specify the currency rates as well. So you have all these options, and even when you go to your selection criteria, you can specify your pay through date. I'm going to select pay through date till December. And once you've specified all your parameters for your payment process request, you click on submit. So click on OK, and I'm going to look at the request. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you would see your scheduled request, and it will give you the details of what's been submitted in the last 72 hours. You can change this to what's been submitted in the last hour as an example, and then you can click on refresh, and that will give you the details. You can see that our payment is gone through the first phase. So I'm going to refresh the screen at the top, and that will tell me that I have one selected payment. And if I click on the action icon, I will be able to see the payment that is going to go through. So we can see that we've got a payment for one invoice which is selected, which is Lee Supplies, for $1,971, and you can specify if you want any discount, any amount. You can change the amount and so on if you want to part pay. You've got other options. You can save, you can determine, well, you can terminate the request or calculate withholding or any interest which is due on the actual payment. And if you have payments which have not been selected, you'll be able to see what details have not been selected and the reasons why. So for example, for this one, which is not selected, it says that the invoice was never validated. That's why it's not selected for payments. So I'm going to click on submit, and I'm going to now click on OK. So that's going to take me to the next phase. So let me refresh. So the initial stage is to select the payment. Now we're going to go through the validation as well. And you can see it's going to create what is called payments payable selected installments report. So it's running. So you have the bill payments as well. So completed. And let's do a refresh. So stage that we are right now is the payment validation. Again, we've got one payment selected. Let's click on the action. As specified earlier on, you could, if you wanted to, skip all these stages, but it's always good to initially check if your payment is selected or not. You can, if you want to, still remove payments at this stage. So for example, you can go in here, select the payment, click on the arrow and remove if you wanted to, but we're not going to do that. So it's giving us the details. We're going to remit to this account. This is the supplier's account or the vendor's account number. Bank of America. This is where it's going to remit to. So this is where it's going. This is where we're paying from. We can also remove from here. So what you have at the bottom is the documents. What you have at the top is what you're paying. So we're paying for this invoice. That's the reference number. You can again terminate at this point, but we're going to go ahead and resume the payment process. So that's now submitted. And the payment goes on. So I'm just going to reduce this so I can see everything on one screen. So let's refresh. So it's doing what is called formatting the payment file. This will generate an output file which will be sent to the bank, and the bank will then act on that. If you remember, we selected the MT103 as the method of payment. So we should have a text file in an MT103 format. So that's building the payment file. Completed, and it's formatting the payment file right now. So that should now, let's have a look at the output. This is the output file that is going to the bank in the MT103 format. So that's basically how to make the payment. So let's refresh, and it should have our payment. So this is our payment recently completed. So that's the payment that we've just made. You can see the parameters 51165, 51165. So that's our payment. Swift MT103 format, formatted and done. And what would also happen is that you will also receive a notification to say that the payment is now formatted. And these are just FYI notifications. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.